Welcome back, everyone. We are back to live stream. A continued slow burn, crash, and failure. I've been trying to get this right in the last few streams, and not doing the best job of it. But what I'm trying to do is render a depth buffer using WGPU, which is the Rust implementation of the WebGPU specification, and let's just say we're having some challenges getting that going. I'm a complete noob for those that haven't seen any of these streams before, both fairly new to Rust and also completely new to, why is that rebuilding? Anyway, I'm completely new to graphics programming. And so we are doing what we can to kind of follow along on a tutorial. And I'm just doing a build here while I set up the stream. So the tutorial is, if we just go across the desktop here, something called Learn WGPU. It's really good. I enjoy it. It's what I enjoy about it is that it actually isn't very complete and it's a little bit out of date. So it forces you to kind of work through some areas of the tutorial that are ambiguous or not quite right, and that forces you to learn. Now, that at the end of most of these, they have these sections of the tutorial. I'm working through the beginner section here, and I'm down in depth buffer. They have these challenges, which are kind of things that are pretty, like they're not very well described or specified, and they want you to kind of try and work out how to do this stuff. Now, I kicked off a build, so it's still building. I just updated Rust, so maybe that's why. Updated my Rust compiler. Okay, so that fails. All right, great. So we're in a failing position. I'm working in a branch called depth buffer. I've been mucking around with a couple of files, changing the way that I generate textures. Too many active changes. Yeah, great. All right. Anyway, and what I've sort of got to here is I've worked out, so there's so many concepts to keep in my head. And so I was showing last stream how I've drawn this little diagram of stuff that I need to, hang on, let me go and see if I can, I don't know what's happening to the stream there, but that diagram is my very poor attempt at trying to show something in terms of how these different concepts fit together. So we've got a pipeline with vertex and fragment shaders that's defined by the pipeline layout. The render pass uses that. The surface creates a view, and then the render pass creates a command encoder which does the draw, and all of these pieces come together, and you have these bind groups that provide access to the render pass for textures and uniform buffers. And in this case, what we've done is we're using the ability for the graphics pipeline to do depth testing as it's drawing pixels on the screen. That's how I understand it. And the way that WebGPU exposes that is via a depth texture. And we're trying to actually render that texture to the screen. Right? Like I'll show you what we were working on. So if we do git switch to main or not. Oh. All right. Yeah, okay, well, let's not do that. Git status. What is going on here? Come on, git status. Anyway, so you'll just have to believe me. What we get is we render 100 of these instances, which is just a polygon. And what I'm trying to do is show what the depth buffer looks like when this thing gets rendered. And what I'm expecting to see is that the depth texture, I use depth texture and depth buffer interchangeably. So this is what we're trying to show the depth buffer for. So these 100 instances here are just effectively polygons that we're drawing with a texture mapped to them. And I'm expecting the depth buffer to show something like, if we color it from, it's a grayscale image, let's say. So if we're, maybe elements that are closer to the screen should be lighter, perhaps, and elements that are further away. So the surface behind this geometry should probably be black, right? It's kind of infinitely far away. And the stuff that's closer should be lighter. And so these should be sort of light gray, graduating towards sort of darker gray, and then sort of a black background, or vice versa, however we want to do that. I'm guessing, like, I actually don't know. This is where my complete graphics newbiness comes into play. So what we'll do is we'll do a half-hour block of work and see how far we can get. Now, what I decided I needed to do when I sort of looked at that set of concepts that I just drew out on the page was that I could just create a separate pipeline and use the same render pass. And that pipeline would let me have a different vertex and fragment shader, which is what I need to show the depth buffer. And that's sort of where we got to last stream. And we got to a point where that's not working, obviously. And so what it's complaining about here is, in our render pipeline, there is a shader stage vertex with error matching the shader stage's vertex shader requirements against the pipeline. Shader global resourcing group 1 binding 0 is not available in the pipeline layout. Binding is missing from the pipeline layout. Okay, so the pipeline is called render pipeline. So if we find that, if I can spell pipeline, here. So this is a render pipeline. And so we need to have vertex information. And what we're doing is we're using a vertex buffer and an instance buffer, which we learned about earlier in the tutorial. The vertex buffer just knows how to draw, contain vertices. In the instances is all the information for drawing these things, in this case, 100 of them, 10 by 10. So it's basically saying create render pipeline. It's not clear. So, all right, so this is our main render pipeline that we created in our constructor. I created another render pipeline. Oh, did I? Yes, I created another render pipeline somewhere here, didn't I? Yes. Okay. So this pipeline here, so I wonder if it's complaining about this pipeline. Shader stage vertex shader. Group 1 binding 0. So this pipeline layout. So we had a texture. Okay. Well, if it's created by set pipeline. It's sort of validation, so probably not. It's probably the layout. Sort of doesn't give you very good messages here in terms of where the error is happening from. I guess that's why you rely on these labels to help you with debugging. Label equals render pipeline. Render pipeline. Yeah, I should have better labels. So let's say depth buffer render pipeline. Depth buffer render pipeline. This might tell us where it's failing, which one it is. It should be the depth one, I guess. Okay, so it is the depth buffer render pipeline that's failing. And that is because something in the layout is saying that it needs so it's saying that there are shader requirements that we've said would be there but aren't. Global resource binding, group 1 binding 0. Okay, create pipeline layout. Bind group layouts is this depth texture. Okay. So vertex state. Okay, so if we look at this, so it should be create render pipeline. Shader stage is vertex. Shader is depth shader. The layout is just this bind group layout. The bind group layout has a view and a sampler. But then but it's complaining about the vertex shader requirements. Ah, it's probably here, right? Is it there though? Like, is it the problem with, we don't need instances. Hang on. Something to do with the vertex shader. And we created a separate sampler that didn't do comparisons. More a separate depth texture here. And we changed this create depth texture method to have a boolean that said whether it was a comparison or not, which is pretty hacky, but that's how we kind of got around that other error. So the view should be okay. So we've passed that error. Now it's coming into this vertex thing. And the buffers that are required, like, we don't need instancing, or do we? Don't think so. and the vertex information is wrong. So vertex up here, had position and text. Oh, so this is good, but we'll need different vertices. So this is what we used to draw the polygon. These vertices and indices. So we'll need equivalent for the depth quad. So basically what we'll need to do is, again, this is my terrible drawing. So what I've attempted to do here is sort of define what the quad looks like for the full, basically for the full surface or the full view. It's kind of funny, isn't it? So I've got very simple. So what I might do here is, and this is obviously a terrible way of doing things, but I'll do depth. Depth. Or can I define it in the struct? Oh, not here. Oh, what am I doing? So down in here, should I have vertices and indices? I think I should. I'll do it as global. What could go wrong? So we'll do const depth vertices, which will be the same type. Oop. And then we'll want depth indices, which is a reference to U16. Oh my god. Just done a full day of work, so I'm a little bit out of it. I'll stop making excuses. All right, so these two things should be used in our depth pipeline. And what we'll need is a vertex with position. And I claim, if we're going to draw two triangles like this, we'll need 0, 0, 0, and text chords. I don't even know what text chords would be. What would text chords be? Can't remember. Was not here, it was buffers and indices. Wasn't there either. Textures? Ah, here it is. So these are the vertices. Okay. Oh, and color. Right. All right, so these text coordinates were introduced later on. Oh, that's a bit annoying. Because we don't need text chords. So what were the text chords all about? Oh, okay. I guess that's kind of true. Since our things are two-dimensional, we'll change the field. Yeah, but how are these text chords discovered? Hmm. I'm going to have a crack at doing it that way, but I actually don't know. So it should just be 0, 0. I suspect. So that's our first vertex. Then we have 3 more. So it'll be 0, 1, 0, 1. It'll be 1, 1. It'll be 1, 0. And then the text chords should be the same, right? I don't know. This could be wrong. Oops. Something like that. Because I think what that would be is just that's the texture coordinated. I think that would be. Is it the coordinate inside the texture, like the XY coordinate? I'm not sure. How are they used in the shader? Text chords as input to the vertex shader model. Text chords. They were just used to sample the texture. Texture sample. Let's have a look. That was in W. That was. Okay. How does texture sample work in a WGSL shader? At a specified set of coordinates. Fetch color or data. Okay. Wow. How do you compute the text chords though? Okay, so then fragment shader main takes text chord in. Text chords relative to the texture or the vertex? No. Or vertex to the texture. Okay. Bottom left of the texture and 1, 1 top right. Okay. What would top left be? 0, 1. Top left. 1, yeah, cool. Yeah. 1, 0. All right. This might be right. And then the indices will be 0, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, I think, according to my scrappy calculations here. So now we have 2 new structures we can use, and that's the right. Well, maybe not. These are floats, are they? God, really? Do I have to do that? Can't it just infer it? I'm sure there's a better way of doing this. Like as float or something. Okay. Right. So wherever we were down here, depth pipeline. So when we had our vertex information, vertices. Okay, so this is the layout. This is the bind group for sampler. This defines buffers, vertex, description. Aha, so vertices is used down in here when we create the vertex buffer. So we'll need to create another depth and index buffer for, sorry, another vertex and index buffer. Oh, sorry, is it indices? Yeah. Vertex and index buffer for depth. Starting to feel like I need to do more than that though. So, like, or like vertex buffer, index buffer is stored inside of the app. So all my state management's all over the place as well. This will be fun. Camera controller. It's quite a bit here, so I'm just trying to kind of getting my head around it again. Bind group's not used. Should be. Bind group, there you go. It's not red. Just thinking whether or not this will be sufficient. So if we go all the way to the render pass, this is where I was hoping, this is where I'm trying to reuse the same render pass. So I set the pipeline. I set the bind group. I set these vertex buffers, an index buffer. Like, am I able to do self vertex buffer slice? Yeah, so this is what I was getting stuck with before. Because I need to set bind groups, but I don't have a way of exposing the bind groups. I think I need I need to wrap it in a high level thing. Okay. Yeah, let me try something else here. So what I was doing was I was creating a list of pipelines that I wanted to run. But like, and I guess the vertex buffers and stuff are completely separate from pipeline. Or should be. Vertex buffer, where was that? Vertex buffer. Okay, it was defined in we create the depth texture. Oh, that was for the first one. Okay. Yeah, like I sort of need, I think I need to just create new ones of these. I sort of want to do it in here. Bind groups. The bind groups aren't used. Pipeline. So I think I want to store a reference to this whole thing. So it'll be something like this: depth vertices. And then depth index. And then I'll store that in here. So be vertex buffer and index buffer. And then vertex buffer? No. What type is it? WGPU buffer it is. Okay. So this creates these buffers that I need. I should just call it bind group, shouldn't I? For simplicity, bind. Oh my god, here we go. Bind group. Okay. I'm getting a compile fail somewhere. Where's the error? Anyway, and then when I create this whole depth pipeline thing, I don't think I should just push it. think what I need is in my Simul app, I need an entire reference to that thing, unfortunately. So I'll do depth pipeline, and that will be a reference to depth pipeline. So it'll be a depth pipeline. Yeah, I might undo what I was doing before there. Pipelines. Yeah, I was adding. Let's do another half an hour, shall we? I was adding to this vector. And I might just keep them separate, I think. But they're different types as well. That's more than a pipeline. All right. Self dot. No. We're going to add this back in. I'm going to do depth scene. I'm going to rename that to depth scene. Going to get rid of this. Don't need this. Create what we need to render the depth buffer. Get rid of this and then bring, but do I need depth texture? I guess so. Render pipeline. Okay. Call it depth scene. Make it one of these. Depth scene. That holds all this information. Then render pass. So it'll be render pipeline. God, pipeline, come on. Okay. Then we do self dot render scene. No, depth scene, sorry. Render pipeline. Pipeline. Okay. So where are we breaking now? Still breaking here somewhere. Is that a real break or is that Rust Analyzer being weird? No, I can't trust Rust Analyzer at the moment. Let's see what breaks. 427. How did I lose that semicolon? Okay, so that's got us nowhere apart from a bit of refactor. Oh, okay. Well, so what we're doing now is we've created this concept of a scene, and that holds all the information we need. Now, if I go and render pass, and then I set up some vertices, stuff. I think I need to set the bind group again, right? But I don't see, this is where I'm gonna, I guess we'll find out. So set bind group. So I can't redefine these things. I think depth scene bind group, and the offsets are whatever this is, nothing, empty slice. So this, is this going to break? I would have assumed so. Like, and we've done a draw. So can we do another draw? Like this, is this basically recreating the render pass? It's not, right? I think, oh God, I hope I don't have to have my own render pass. This is getting ridiculous. Anyway, I'm learning, so hopefully learning. Oh, I forgot to hit my timer. Let's go. All right, so so we add a bind group. Well, I guess let's see if it even builds. Looks like you can overload it. What if I run? Yeah. All right. So we basically want the same thing, but instead of self vertex buffer, we'll do self depth scene vertex buffer, and then we'll do the same thing for index because we're not instancing. What am I doing here? Depth. Okay, so that should be all the stuff we need to draw. Well, we've attached our pipeline. Is that the right way? Is that the right language? Set our pipeline. So the question is, like, once you've set all this state on the render pass, does it hang around for the next time you try and do something with it? So I guess that's what we're going to find out. So far, it doesn't look like it's complaining. But then we've got our own bind group in the depth scene that we're setting. Then we've created our own depth vertex buffer and depth index buffer to draw a quad. And we're not 100% sure of the text coordinates in the vertex buffer, but whatever. Yeah, I will need to work that out. Okay, so set up vertices. Yeah, I've done all that. Yeah, I've done all that. Don't want that. And then I guess, can I just do draw again? Like, I don't know. Oop. Oh. So do we draw here? If so, how? And number of indices is wrong. And number of instances is wrong because we don't have instances. So I don't think we need to draw index, do we? Yeah, we do. Okay. So the number of indices was, yeah, great. It's like we're redoing the whole flippin' thing. I'm just not even going to bother. I'm just going to do index buffer depth index. So num indices. It's literally indices length. Okay. Then I won't bother. I'll just put it as self dot depth scene dot index buffer length. Okay. Which doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work. It's a buffer. Oh yeah, of course. So oof. Yeah, I will. God. Num indices. I'll do it. Let num indices equal depth. Oops. Index. Depth. Indices length. Okay. So depth scene num indices. All right. Okay. Who knows what this will do? Probably break horribly. But we'll probably get the same error because I don't think we've actually fixed the error. Great example of programming where you don't actually fix any errors. Error matching, okay. So we've got to fix this thing. Well, anyway, we don't know if this even works. So, you know, to do, try and draw the depth buffer texture. Can we just draw here using the same render pass with new bind group and vertex index buffers? Okay, so that's what we don't know. All right, but anyway, we've got to go back to depth buffer render pipeline. So we've got to fix this now. Depth buffer render pipeline. What's wrong with my brain? Error matching shader's stage vertex shader requirements against the pipeline. So we've got a vertex thing. We've got a fragment thing. Compilation options. Okay. A depth stencil. Do we need that? I feel like we don't need that. Like, why do we need a depth stencil when we're rendering? I don't think we need this. I don't think. Oh, maybe we do. Oh, it's probably an option, is it? Great. We need something. So let's do depth stencil none. See. Multi-view, multi-sample. Procrastination. Depth scene. I'll leave it. Well, I know the shader doesn't need half the stuff it's got in it because this had all the camera crap in it that we didn't need, but that still doesn't help. We don't need instance input either, but that's not the concern. We still do need position and text chords. We need clip and text. We don't need all this crap, do we? Don't think we need all this, right? Because that'll all be done in the texture basically. So I don't think we need any of this stuff. Basically, if we go back to what that thing looked like initially, it'll be like this, I think. Something like this. vmain. Oh yeah, we don't need instance here. Don't need instance input. Vertex output. I don't think we need this. I think it's as simple as what we had before. So basically that again. And then we'll have the depth texture and the depth sampler, and then it'll be something like this, right? Value is going to be T depth, S depth with the coords, and then we don't need any of this crap. So I don't think, so this will just, in my mind, don't know why I don't like this. Anyway, extra spacing everywhere. So this thing should just, this is what we need, I think. Location 0, depth, so that in vertex output. So we've got texture. So the texture sample type might be interesting. (329) texture sample type. Yeah, I have a feeling we need to treat it as a float. What does WGPU texture sample type mean? If it's depth, does the depth reference comparison? What does that mean? Non-filtering sampler. Filterable. What does filterable mean? Float. Sampling returns floats. Can't be sampled with a filtering sampler. It's possible to sample the non-filtering sampler. Because we just want to treat it as a dumb texture, right? We don't want to do any of this depth reference comparison stuff, do we? I don't know. See if ChatGPT can tell me. All right. What is the difference between and depth? Get it to do the work while I'm pouring my cup of tea. Okay, sample type. Okay, sampling color textures. Sampling depth textures. Oh, I mean, depth looks right to me, so let's just see. Who knows? All right. Now, again, not fixing anything. Let's see if I've broken anything up. Anything else? Okay. Depth buffer render pipeline. Shader stages fragment. Shader global resource binding group 0 binding 0 is not available in the pipeline layout. Shader global resource binding group 0 binding 0 group 0. Vertex description. And is that because okay, vertex description. Render pipeline layout. Staring me in the face, I'm sure. Render pipeline layout has two bind groups. When we create the pipeline, we pass in two buffers. Set vertex buffer. Render pass set vertex buffer. Render pass. I'll just do set vertex buffer. Weird. Shader stages fragment shader requirements against the pipeline. What does this mean? Resources or inputs expected by the fragment shader and those provided by the pipeline. Position and text coordinates. This is an unrelated error. It's kind of bad. It says that the shader group 0 binding 0 is not available in the pipeline layout. Bind group layouts. Group 0 binding 0. Group 0 binding 0. Bind group layout 0 0. 0.01. What did we do before? Bind group layout. Fragment. So that was the same. Texture bind group layout. I don't get it. As far as I can tell, so the vertex shader requirements, group 1 binding 0 is fixed. Maybe it's worse now. Shader stages, fragment, shader requirements against the pipeline. I wonder if it's because of this depth thing. Type. What if we change this to float? If that fixes it. That'd be freaking hilarious. Float, and then I forgot what was. Filterable false. Let's just do filterable false. Oh, cool. See, I'm not thinking, I'm just trying. Unable to filter the texture. Non-filterable float can't be sampled with filtering sampler. Do we need a filtering sampler? Why do we need a filtering sampler? What is a blah blah? Filtering type is used to support filtering operations which affect how texture data is sampled. Here's a detailed explanation. Determining the color of a texture at non-integer coordinates. No idea. Don't know if that's required. Ah, man, it's so interesting though. There's so many things to learn. Okay, what happened then? Depth 32 float. Sure. I mean, I guess, I don't know, depth 32 float? Do I need to do something? Like, what other options do I have? Yep. Can I use a depth 32, what do they call it? Depth 32 float. Expect sample type equals float. Is that the right? What other options do I have here? Okay, in my fragment shader, I'm using, but can I support a depth 32 float? See what ChatGPT makes sense of there. That's fine. We could try this. So I want a texture depth 2D, I think. Do I need to specify the type? Is that enough? That feels weird to me. And sampler comparison. Really? No, surely not. I thought I did a non-comparison sampler for that reason. Okay, a world of new errors. What? Oh, great. That value texture sample. I wonder if that means we can just go back to using a comparison sampler. Sampler binding expects comparison equals false, but given a sampler with comparison equals true. So now I'm confused again. I think I've been confused this whole stream. Sampler binding expects comparison equals false, but given a sample with comparison equals true. Okay. So the bind group uses a filtering sampler. I feel like it should be float. Could be wrong. Texture. Well, now we're using the wrong type of view. Depth 32 float. Texture depth 2D. So I don't want to just continue with the float idea. I don't know if that's right though. But the problem is because so depth format is used in the texture descriptor. Yeah. There are all these different text formats. Let's have a quick look. WGPU texture format. Yeah, this was a huge list. I remember. we've got a depth thingy majiggery. We're using the right type in here, apparently. Sampler comparison doesn't seem right to me. What happens if I do this? Oh. Texture sample is wrong. Fragment is valid. The return value does not match the function return type. Entry point. Really? What does entry point not valid mean? The return. It's just a normal sampler. I wonder if where is this stuff? Where's texture sample defined? Interesting. But what I want to do is just find like texture built-in functions. Must only be used, yeah. Derivative uniformity diagnostic. Sure. Oh, right. Okay, so it doesn't actually match the type. Okay. Right. So, oh no, it should. Oh, it needs offset. Does it? Chords and offset. What is offset? It's a vec. I don't know what offset is. Texture sample. The optional texel offset. I have no idea what this is doing. Must be at least -8. Sure, I guess 0, 0. I have no idea. All right, let offset equal vec2 I32 0, 0. God. Okay. To do. I don't know why. Don't know what offset does or why it's required for a texture depth 2D. Type. See that thing. Don't even know if this will fix it, but definitely have the wrong type in there. That can't be good. All right, great. Option not supported there. Cool. Operation not supported. So now I can't read either. Must use. Oh, but it returns a float. Oh, what? What? Oh man, I'm so confused now. What does the float represent? The sampled value. What is A? Parameterization. So is it something as stupid as return so let pixel equal vec4 f32 value 1. That doesn't make any sense, does it? I mean, it's whatever the value is in the texture, we want to just have grayscale, so it's RGB the same with alpha as 1. Not supported. Oh, I should have read the thing. This operation is not supported in a const context. Const context. Confuse. What does a const context mean? parsing error. Context. God. All right. Texture sample. And then there was compare. Reference value. So we have a comparison sampler. Depth ref. Don't think we need to do anything like that. So what am I comparing it against? Shouldn't it just be a texture that already has done all that work for me? This would be if I'm creating my own depth buffer type of thing, right? Maybe not. Post the sample depth values against reference value. Must be a const expression. How do I make it a const expression in a shader? Oh yeah, that seems to be the way you do it. Okay. Cool. Next error. Depth buffer render pipeline. Render pipeline targets are incompatible. Incompatible. Oh. The render pass. So I didn't think I needed a render stencil thingy. Like, I mean, we can put it back in, but I don't understand why we need it. Let's have a look. And then if we look at the render pass, doesn't ever render it though. Well, it runs, but if we go down here, does it run the same? Drawer indexed. So there's only one instance. So before we introduced instances, what did it look like? What did the render pass look like? Drawer indexed was just this, right? Yep. 0 to the number of indices. So it's all right. So we've somehow managed to get everything running without it actually doing what we want. And now I wonder whether or not it needs its own render pass. I really hope it doesn't. This might be a good place to stop though. Yeah. Yeah, look, I think I'm going to stop here. Well, you know what? At least we got... at least we got something working. But what I'll do is I will commit this. Got depth, buffer, additions, compiling and running, but we definitely need to do some more work on it. All right, so I've just committed, and I'm gonna have to look at it and see what's going on. I sort of suspect that it's a render pass problem. The fact that we're trying to reuse the same render pass, but hey, keep learning. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll try and do another one soon.